The Secrets of Middle-earth is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
You're listening to The Secrets of Middle-earth, where we discuss the hidden themes and deeper layers found in the works of J.R.R. Tolkien, whether in his writings or in any of the media derived from them. And tonight we continue our march through the Silmarillion with Tuor and the Fall of Gondolin. I'm Thomas Salerno, and joining me today are Jeff Haecker. Hello, Jeff.
Hey, Thomas.
And Patrick Mason. Hello, Pat.
Howdy, Thomas.
And Rob Leonardi. Hey there, Rob.
How's it going?
Good. All right, everybody. Be sure to follow us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, or your podcast directory or app of choice. And you can find us on social media at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, or on X, where we are at SQPN, or on Instagram, where we are at StarQuest Network. And of course, don't forget that you can get your official Secrets of Middle-earth merchandise, including our awesome t-shirt at sqpn.com/merch. It's a great way for you to support our show and to show your love for J.R.R. Tolkien and his wonderful world of Middle-earth. But before we get into further tonight, we have a few news items for us.
Yeah, so the first one is Orlando Bloom has recently said he wants to reprise Legolas if Legolas is in the hunt for Gollum. So as I joked on the Discord, we're getting the band back together. Everybody from the Jackson verse. So we will see if that happens.
Well, I figured it's okay. They want to follow up on that little thing that they did at the end of the third Hobbit movie, right? Where Legolas was supposed to go look for Aragorn or something like that. Yeah. Man, I rolled my eyes in the theater. I was just like, okay.
Yeah.
Roll my eyes, then I'll roll my eyes.
Exactly.
Maybe they just want a chance for Frodo to be to acknowledge if Frodo knows Legolas's name.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, there was that. Because it hadn't said he's cast, but he's basically saying if he's in the movie, he wants to be in it. But and then I did see that I believe Andy Serkis went to New Zealand recently to, I guess, do some pre-production for the movie. So we are moving along. We're a little bit over 2 years away now from it. So, as soon as you can listen to all the breaking updates here on this podcast.
And then the other thing is that we have Tolkien kind of coming full circle, and I'm going to butcher this, Volante Opera Productions with Paul Corfield Godfreys is creating an operatic adaptation of Lord of the Rings consisting over 17 hours of music with 80 named characters.
Whoa.
So,
wait,
yeah.
Lord of the Rings. Okay.
It sounds like the entire Lord of the Rings production in opera form. So it's going to take 6 days for you to watch it instead of 6 hours.
Oh my gosh. Now, before we started recording, I joked about vinyl. How many vinyl records would it take to listen to 17 hours of music?
But it's coming full circle. You have the inspiration from Tolkien with the Das Ring and
5, maybe 6. You feel a lot excited.
Yeah.
Ooh.
That's the reason why they created compact discs.
Yeah.
80 named characters. That's oof. I'm trying to come up with 80 named characters now. Who's going to play Treebeard?
Will we finally get Baragond in something?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah, that does sound interesting though. Like I would like to listen to it whenever it's available, but
apparently physical copies are available to pre-order now.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
And then they probably are performing it somewhere at some point, I'm sure about it.
All right, so if that's all the news, we can head into Doom. This time, the Doom of Gondolin, or I joked that this chapter could have been called Ulmo. Well, I tried.
Almost last gambit. One Valar against the world.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Ulmo, man, he tries his best in this one.
Yeah.
And what is interesting about Tuor and the Fall of Gondolin is that it has basically existed in some form, this story, since Tolkien's time on the Western Front in 1916. Like this is pretty much almost like the beginning of the Middle-earth material is this story, which surprises me that in the published Silmarillion, it's so short.
Yeah.
Compared to some of the other stuff.
I was doing the audiobook of the Fall of Gondolin, and they just he rewrote it so many times.
Yeah.
And added so much depth to it. And then here is just like cliff notes.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't even Christopher doesn't even go into the houses and the various, factions that were in Gondolin.
Oh, that stuff is so cool. In
how the battle went down. And you're just like, oh man, that was a missed opportunity.
You in the actual Fall of Gondolin, or at least one of the many versions, he almost makes it clear, you go tell him to do this, or you are doomed.
Making it explicit, doom.
They, at one point, I think he actually says, if you follow my words, there will be no more orcs evermore.
Oh, right. I remember that. Yeah. Like the entire race of orcs will be extinct and elves will never be troubled by them again. Yeah, like the Fall of Gondolin, the book that's actually called The Fall of Gondolin that Christopher published, which has basically most of the major versions of this, is really interesting. And you can find also most of those too in the Book of Lost Tales.
Yep.
I think as well.
Yep.
But yeah, it's like it, and I've pretty much read most of that other material, and yeah, I think they're pretty much all superior to the Silmarillion version, which is kind of sad, especially since it's basically the first Middle-earth story ever composed by Tolkien.
It's literally I'm cautiously optimistic now.
Yeah, we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, well, shockingly, I have not read the full book, so I just want to. I've got to get these on my to read list because I definitely want to check them out.
So that's interesting. Like Jeff, did it seem too short to you? Or?
Oh yeah, I mean it seemed like it seemed very short compared to some of the chapters earlier that are also short that cover hundreds of years in a page.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed very, very short and like so much happening that I would have liked to know more of. And I've heard bits and pieces of it from other podcasts and things of kind of what's in the story. But yeah, I definitely felt there was a lot missing, and I don't know the rhyme or reason as to why it was cut down so much. Maybe there just wasn't one consistent version enough to put it together, and so he had to kind of use the very Cliff Notes version, like we said, to make it
was complete. Yeah.
To make it internally consistent with the rest of the story. So
yeah, well, even like Christopher in the actual Fall of Gondolin, he writes how many things it had been changed. People's names have been changed 4 or 5 times, and
yeah,
Like he was literally working this out, and it was the very last. The Fall of Gondolin was the very last book that Christopher published, and he put a preface in there saying that like I'm like 97 years old now. I'm done.
Yeah.
First thing Tolkien wrote, last thing that gets published.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it went through so many revisions, including the original draft that Christopher found was written on top of an erased draft.
Yeah. Oh my God.
So the original Tolkien erased and then wrote what we have as the quote unquote original on top of it. So you can tell he was just constantly reworking this.
Yeah. And you could tell like from reading like the Lost Tales and some of the other History of Middle-earth material, you can feel the frustration in Christopher as he narrates trying to work out his father's creative process, because Tolkien was not thinking with posterity in mind. He would just erase drafts or write over it. So it's completely
at one point. Yeah, at one point it's just like there was an X through this sentence, but there was no other replacement.
Right, yeah. He's not thinking with posterity in mind. But we all know that the real in-universe explanation of why it's so short is Bilbo's fault. He's the person collecting 100%. All of this material. So he maybe he was just getting like old at that point, and he's just like, you know what? I don't have time for this anymore.
Yeah. He was tired of the doom and ready for the end.
Ready for something else. Yeah.
Really what we need is a series of Civil War type documentaries about all of the battles and the First Age in general, just to take us through everything.
Right. Yeah.
So much of these. And we get, the Silmarillion and 1,000 years passed. And you're like, what?
And the city fell. They're just like, what?
What? Yeah.
But despite the chapter being so short, there's actually a ton going on. Like, and I've divided it into sections, which we'll kind of go over. Like, the first section I call Tuor's journey, which is essentially him getting his vocation from Ulmo. And I count this as like up like from the beginning of the story up to when he arrives in Gondolin. Do you guys have any thoughts in general about, Tuor's journey and meeting Ulmo and getting the armor and finding Gondolin and all that?
So if you had Turin kind of laid down as like the poorly fated man, or the man who is fated to just eat it, Tuor is kind of on the other side.
Eat those cookies.
Right, yeah. He is going to eat every last one. I don't care how many tears you cry. May they be unnumbered. Anyways. Tuor, his family flees, but he gets captured and then somehow escapes, and then manages to be a reign of terror upon these people, the Easterlings, that take over his land. Manages to escape through a dark tunnel just because he happens to luck, in the book, Fall of Gondolin, luck onto a couple of elves. Gets to the sea, which he falls in love with, which is like score one for Ulmo.
Right,
this guy, yeah. And then just realizes that the 7 swans or geese, I can't remember, that are flying south are meant for him, and then goes to the right place at the right time. He's always in the right place at the right time with the right guy, except for that one time where they didn't cross paths with Turin, and that was maybe one of those. I don't want to damage my fate by interacting with yours, kind of a deal. But he's always in the right place at the right time, versus his cousin Turin, who is always in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yes, or at least doing the wrong things at the times and places.
Right, like Turin makes poor choices, and Tuor seems to make much better choices. Although I think even in one of the longer versions, like Ulmo kind of dresses him down for like waiting so long at the shore that he's like, I had to send those swans to get you to move. Like, why did you were supposed to make our appointment.
No, he totally admonishes him, being like, hey, you were supposed to arrive here in the spring, but now you're going to have to suffer through a winter, and you have to take a different route than I had. There's a really beautiful route planned for you.
Yeah, man, I'm just trying to help you. Why did you? And then Tuor is probably like, well, you could have sent a clearer message.
Yeah.
But that's Valar for you, right? Like they think that their signs and portents are super clear to everybody, but they're just not.
Yeah.
Well, and I think too they're limited in their what they can do to get involved. It's almost if they do too much, they could get in trouble, because then they could kind of start veering into like Morgoth territory of, I know best, so I'm doing it my way. They're still trying. They're still loyal to Manwë and Eru Ilúvatar.
They respect men's free will, basically.
Yeah. Well, and as they talk about it later in this chapter, like they need somebody to come and the Valar need an actual request from the people to intervene. They're not going to intervene just because one of them thinks they should. Like they need the creations to, come and plead for aid, as we'll see.
And this is sort of like the fulfillment of Ulmo's long game, because he's been planning this since he put that dream into Turgon's head to found the city. And also told him, okay, when you leave your original city, Nevrest, I need you to leave this armor behind. And it's got to be tailored in a certain way, and it's got to have these signs and sigils on it. Don't ask why, just do it.
Yeah, and when the guy shows up with it, you'll know it's me.
Right, you'll know the message is from me. Yeah.
I like it's in effect, it's almost last gambit, right? Because, by this point, Nagathrond is fallen. Doriath's on its way out. And so he's like, okay, if I can convince Turgon to flee and send messages to the Valar, then I can get, all these Noldor back home. And you just see like Ilúvatar in the background going, yeah, it's not going to work out that way. I'm going to use your gambit to actually throw the final gambit here, but sorry, bud. Right. It's going to go bad for Gondolin too.
That reminds me of Aule. Like I want the children to appear now, so he creates his own, surrogate children, and Ilúvatar's like, no, it's not going to work out that way, but I'm going to take this and fold it into my larger plan anyway. Yeah, and it's like it's so much cliff notes. Like they mention the 7 gates like briefly, but if you read like the Unfinished Tales version, Tolkien meticulously describes each of those gates.
Oh yeah,
through the mountain cleft that leads you to the city. And the version of the Unfinished Tales is such a tease, because you get at the very end, it's like, and he looks across the plain at the beautiful city, and it like cuts off, and you're just like, no.
Why? Yeah, that was the last he wrote of that version. You're just like, oh, come on, man. And like Varanwe gets a mention, but he is so important in the larger story.
Right. He basically like saves Tuor from like freezing to death or starving in the wilderness. He never would have found Gondolin on his own without this guy.
Yeah.
And that's where they see Turin in the distance, but they don't know who it is. And they just see someone in the black armor. They're like, yeah, we don't want any of that. That seems very doomed. So
Marvel MCU character cameo, like very much so. Yeah.
You see, it's funny because the elves having sort of the second sight. Tuor's probably looking at him like, oh, it's a man, and Varan was probably, we don't want anything to do with him. There's a lot of stuff going on there. We don't want anything to do with that.
He's got this black mist following him that seems like doom. So
It's Doom Cloud.
It's like Pigpen from Charlie Brown.
Yeah, like Pigpen. That's right. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So that brings us to Tuor in Gondolin. And it's interesting because I think in some of the longer versions, you get more of this debate between Tuor and Turgon. Because he gets to see the king, and you get more of Turgon's internal motivations. And in some versions, they're different. I think like Tolkien went back and forth on what he actually thought like Turgon's reasoning was. In some, he's just too proud to ask for help from the Valar, and in others, he's just like, no, I don't think it's going to happen.
He's too proudful.
Proudful. Prideful? Yeah, prideful.
Proud.
Yeah.
That's a word.
Proudful. Yeah. No, I like proudful. Yeah.
Trademark by the Secrets of Middle Earth.
Yes. Yeah. But like in other versions, he's just kind of like, England and France before World War II. I don't think it's going to happen. It's fine. We're fine. Everybody's fine here. So.
How are you?
How are you? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We had a reactor leak. Very dangerous.
Very dangerous, yeah. But the real answer might be kind of all of the above. I'm sure Turgon has all these conflicting reasons in his head for why he won't follow Ulmo's instructions, even though, like, he's been told when the guy shows up in the armor you left, the doom of the city is approaching, and he just rationalizes it in his head. He's like, nah, no.
No, I've never seen the Noldor be prideful before, so it's never happened in this book.
And it's the doom, right? No, yeah, it's the doom. It's the oath. It keeps following these people despite their best intentions, and Gondolin has kind of become for Turgon what the Silmarils were for Feanor. It's become that thing that he's grasping onto. He now loves this city that he's built with his own hands, basically, at the hands of his people. Like, that work of their hands has become so precious that they won't let it go. They won't see that everything in this world passes away. So he just wants to keep holding on to it.
Yeah. And it's such a tragic decision because Gondolin was built as a shadow of Tyrion on the Hill of Tuna, right? It was built from Turgon's remembrance of what Tyrion looked like, and he crafted it kind of in the same way, on a hill out of this plain. And he wants to keep it because of that. But yeah, it's just like they can't accept that this is, Middle Earth is not a temporal vortex like Valinor is. Things go away here. Things pass away.
Right.
You kind of get this feeling like, if things had been better, had there not been this Morgoth and the Silmarils and the oaths and all of the badness,
the
doom. Yeah.
Kinslaying, yep.
Yeah, this would have been a lesson taught to both the Eldar or the elves and the Valar about the passing of things, that the men would have taught them that lesson. And instead, like, Ulmo literally sends them a man. They count him as an elf.
Right. Yeah, he marries Tuor. He marries his daughter off to Tuor. Mm-hmm. We don't see, sadly, any of their courtship or anything like that. It's kind of hinted at.
Is any of that in the main book or like in the
not much, really?
There's some of it, but it's mainly focused just on like how wise that she is, and
she has kind of foresight.
Yeah. She's the one that created the hidden path.
Right, to escape the city, because she has this foreboding, that things aren't going to go well. But and so we're speaking of Idril, Turgon's daughter, Idril Celebrimbor, and so through her and Tuor, it's actually the second union of elves and men. So you have the first with Beren and Luthien, and this is the second time it's happened, and it's well, like you said, Pat, it's the it's kind of Iluvatar's grand plan here, that he's not only to ennoble men, but to also rescue the Noldor, because they need an ambassador, and that ambassador is going to come from the union of the two unions of elves and men. So from the line of Beren and Luthien and the line of Tuor and Idril will,
Arundel and Elwing.
Yeah, Arundel and Elwing, right,
Yeah. And like all good loves, it's got to be a triangle here.
Yeah. And that triangle brings doom.
Brings doom,
Triangle of doom.
The triangle of doom, It brings us to our next section, Maeglin's treachery. If you've been with us through our march through the Silmarillion, you'll remember Maeglin. He came, I think him and his father have a whole chapter devoted to them, if I remember rightly. Yeah.
It's sort of this fairy tale that kind of begins the narrative section of the Silmarillion, where we move from the more kind of high look onto the world, and we get events and times and that sort of thing. We go more down into the nitty-gritty details of people's lives, and it's sort of this little fairy tale that begins it, where she disappears into the dark forest and is taken captive by the Dark King, and has a son, and they escape. And of course, Curfin is in it, because why wouldn't he be?
Right. He smack talks Eol, the Dark Elf. Yeah. Yep. But yeah, it's very Brothers Grimm almost. It really is. But Maeglin is now living in Gondolin. And after he witnesses his father getting thrown to the rocks from the city, but he's now big shot. He's on the king's council. He's head of his own house, basically the House of the Mole, I think it's called in some of the extended materials, because they're all miners and they dig for ore and gems and stuff.
And at one point they call them gnomes.
Yeah, gnomes, yeah. Because, like, they're into gems and stuff, like, they're gnomes, yeah. But then, like, they say in the councils of the king, he's always against Tuor. So he doesn't like Tuor from the first. And, of course, it's because he's jealous. Despite being Idril's cousin, he wants to marry Idril, so that's gross.
Yeah.
Well, it's better than marrying your sister like Turin did. So.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
We can't say, or just to get a reference, better than an elf marrying. I'm trying to get us paid, Pat.
Thanks,
paid, yeah. Paid.
Appreciate it.
But it's like, also, it's not just that, like, he has this weird, lust for his cousin. It's also just his hubris. He defies the king's laws, where it's like, you're not supposed to go beyond sort of that ring of jagged mountains that surround the city. And yet he keeps going farther and farther in search of ore and new resources. And that's, of course, he's taken captive by a scouting force of orcs. Because if you remember from, I think, our last Silmarillion episode, you remember that vaguely the location of the city, its sort of vague general area, has already been betrayed by the despair of Hurin.
They're yelling at the mountains.
Right, old man yells at mountains. Right, yeah.
Yep. Morgoth
must be over there.
So, but the orcs take him to Morgoth, and he betrays the location of the city. Although they say that, like, it was interesting. Like, they almost say that, like, he wasn't going to betray the city at first, but it was just that like the torture he's threatened with was just too much, and he's just like, and then just to sweeten the deal, Morgoth's like, oh yeah, you can become king of the city and marry Idril.
Yeah.
I don't know why you believe that, but
yeah, right.
Yeah.
So, Maeglin, it's interesting because Turgon gets the foresight when Tuor shows up that this is going to happen. Like, because he's reminded of the doom. He's reminded of what, Mandos said, that it's always going to come internally.
Treachery.
Like, it's going to be treachery and deceit, and you're going to fall upon each other. And so he's like, okay, I'll just stop up, I'll close the gates. We'll stop up the entrance. There'll be nobody else getting in. The Eagles will take care of the skies, and I'm all good. And it's like, the guy who's going to betray you is standing to your left. Like, he's right there.
Literally your kith and kin is going to betray you, like.
And I do like that they have him put up a fight at least, and that he was hard to break, but breaks eventually.
No, I mean, Tuor spent 7 years in Gondolin. 7 years. And it was one of his high councils, and then all of a sudden you have this guy that's betraying you, that's been there all along. Like, yeah, let's start not listening to the guy that shows up with my armor that I left out of what I was told to do. And yeah, I don't know. It feels very much of a human thing to do for an elf to do.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think that's the effect of them being in Middle Earth, right? It almost humanizes the elves in a way, makes them less like the Valar and more like mortal men by being in Middle Earth and not in because Valinor is almost like their kind of natural habitat. Like, I know they weren't created there, but it's almost like Valinor is the place where elves are sort of meant to be. And when they're not there, when they're not in the
it's the Garden of Eden.
Right, yeah. And so when they're in Middle Earth, they start to politic and act more like mortal men,
and it's also they're snared in the doom as well.
I think too, yeah.
That part of it, because even in Valinor, some of the elves were already politicking and arguing, like mainly Feanor. but I mean, that tendency was already there in the elves, and yeah, there's probably a factor of the doom and the factor of, I mean, it's a combination of things. There's factors of, like you said, Valinor in the west is where they are kind of meant to be and meant to go, but then they haven't gone there yet, or they've gone and returned in some cases. So.
Right, and it's like the longer they obstinately stay in Middle Earth, the kind of worse off they get. Even to the point where in like the Third Age, it's like some of them like are starting to fade almost, where it's like, they become less and less of elves. And like in some of Tolkien's writings, he talks about how like eventually they will, if they stay in Middle Earth, they will literally fade. Like their bodies will be consumed by their spirits, and they'll become these invisible beings. So it's like they're not, it's almost like their life force is so strong, like it can only be sustained by a place like Valinor, which is where everything's much more alive and permanent than it is in the mortal world.
Yeah,
unless your name is Círdan, in which case you can stay as long as you want.
As long as you want.
That's because he has a protective beard.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. It's because he uses Shallette. That's why. Remember, the best an elf can get.
Yeah.
And the beard gives you +10
with the Dior.
Spirit.
Dior, yeah, it uses the fragrance. Yeah. But talking about that, Pat, just makes me think that, like, why didn't we get that kind of elves in the Rings of Power, where it's like clearly otherworldly, but
That's plenty more to talk about that. Okay. But I think a particular problem with the Noldor, and it's because of what they love, right? And you have, the other two, they kind of have the love of the Valar and the love of hanging out on the beach. Which, man, am I in that group?
And their ships, the Teleri love their ships.
The ships. And, but, it's sort of more love of fun and play and enjoyment of others. And the Noldor are very much love of the things, right? The things they craft, the not just the things like, but the crafting itself, right? And I think the longer they're exposed to a place where things don't last, where everything I build is eventually going to crumble, and Morgoth is just hammering that down as hard as he possibly can on everything they do, including, in a way they're very species, and it wears on them in such a way that makes them grasp harder. Right. It's sort of if I'm going to lose this and I want to hold on to it harder. And it's the old, the always the problem of man, which is the love of the lesser good instead of the love of God. That the elves are, in particular, I think the Noldor are susceptible to, which is why they, Morgoth was able to needle into them so much and get them to politic, because what's the fear of? Well, it's a fear of loss, and it's a loss of these things. And with Feanor, it was the loss of the greatest of the things, which was the Silmarils. And now we're playing on Turgon's fear of losing his great work, right? Yeah. Which if he had built in Valinor, no problem. But here,
he built it knowing, he probably built it going, I'm going to do this better and prepare for this sack and prepare for all of this problems I'm going to have. So I'm going to be, the best that there can be. And so they're going to be wrong.
Right.
The gods are wrong.
Yeah. I've seen the worst the enemy has to throw at me. I was there at the Neonathan Nordian. I know what's on the field. I can deal with all of that.
I was there, Gandalf.
Yeah.
No, I think that's right. I think, that pride has crept in where he's like, no, I just know better. Like, and I think that's why he doesn't suspect Maeglin either. It's that pride, my own kin wouldn't betray me, even though Mandos just told them your kin will betray you.
Literally, your kin will betray you. Does nobody listen to me?
And the Noldor have betrayed each other before and betrayed other elves. So
right,
But what is it? So it took 7 years for Tuor to marry Idril, and Turgon's probably just thinking like, oh, hey, you're here 7 years. The doom hasn't come yet. Like, is it really supposed to be coming? And he's not going to be as on guard as he would have been if it happened sooner.
Well, the thing with elves, though, is they don't really perceive time the way a human does. Like,
true.
At least from my understanding, they kind of are. I mean, they don't really sleep. They kind of have like a waking dream kind of a thing when they rest. And we saw it in I know this isn't canon necessarily, but in Rings of Power, we had Elrond who had seen years pass by since he had seen Durin, and just really didn't. Then he's like, "Oh, has it been that long? I feel like we were just at your wedding." Like,
I just saw you. Yeah.
So I think it's a thing that elves as well. Like, they kind of almost living in not quite an eternity, like an eternal now, but kind of getting close to that, where they just like since the time doesn't really affect them the same way it does humans, whereas Tuor's as a man would be perceiving the time pass every day.
Right.
And when the attack actually happens, I think it's interesting that it happens at a time of festival for the Noldor. They actually mention this like holiday that they celebrate, the gates of summer. So they're waiting for the sun to rise over the eastern hills, but instead they see the red flames come over the northern horizon instead, which is a very cinematic image. I like that. But yeah,
make the movie, Peter Jackson.
Yeah, make the movie. This would actually make kind of like a really cool anime, because there's a lot of like, and especially in the other material where they talk about, because like there's so many cool battles that in this version it's so frustrating. They like mention them, but we don't get anything about it. You know, like they mention Ecthelion battling Gothmog, Lord of the Balrogs. That is so cool in the extended stuff, or the fall of Turgon. Yeah. The Battle of the Tower, or even like Idril putting on armor and going in search of her husband, and she's girt with a sword, and it's like there's this warrior woman. I'm like, that's great. I'm like, it's like we don't see any of that. Or that one guy, what was his name? Rog? Very strange name for an elf. And he has like, him and his guys all have these giant war hammers, and they're just smashing through all these orcs, and they make this wedge, and they have this last stand. Like, but we don't get any of that in this version. No. So
you don't get any of the battles at all of the gates that happen, and as the enemies of Morgoth come over the hills and storm the gates all at the same time. Not the enemy, the forces of Morgoth, I should say.
And then you have the ways of escape being cut off.
Right, because like everybody like wants to go through the main way in and out of the city, the one that Turgon had blocked off earlier.
Yeah,
but they all get fried because Morgoth just puts a dragon there.
Fire drakes of the north.
Glaurung, and they even say Glaurung's brood.
Yeah, and in the other material, there's normal dragons there, and then there's also these like mecha dragons, these like metallic creatures imbued with like a spirit of fire inside, which is interesting, and we don't see those anywhere else. Which some say was inspired by the tanks on the Western Front.
Right.
Those kind of very, very slow moving World War I tanks.
Yeah. Tractors, basically.
Yeah. And but like Idril has been preparing, because she has been making this way of escape for I think years beforehand, like building this secret tunnel underneath the city.
They're doomed.
This is the Silmarillion. They are in fact doomed. So and she's trying to rally some of the people to get as many people as possible through this secret escape route. But Maeglin, man.
Yep.
Shows up, captures Idril.
Promised this. I'm taking it for my own.
Yeah, it's like, and he wants to throw, Arundel off the edge or whatever. Tuor's son, which he's had with Idril, but nope. And I like the poetic justice that Maeglin suffers the same. Well, because his father cursed him when he fell off the city. He's like, you're going to suffer the same fate. And Maeglin's just like, yeah, whatever, Dad. So,
yeah. Like everybody in the first age, what goes around comes around. There's really no escaping it.
Nope.
Just ask Neem the dwarf.
Yeah, he's basically that could be on his tombstone. What goes around comes around.
Yeah.
You might say it's like a ring. A ring of power.
Oh, come on.
Ring ring of power.
Too far, Jeff.
But no, the Tuor leads with Idril, the exiles of Gondolin, through the secret way, and they get to if I'm not mistaken, right, they actually go in the least expected direction. They go north.
You go north, yeah.
Yeah, which you'd think is like toward danger, which is, of course, why Morgoth's not expecting it. And they go through this sort of pass where Thorondor and the other eagles, have their eyries, but there's an ambush by orcs and a Balrog, and that's where we get the famous duel between Glorfindel and the Balrog. Proving again, I think, that Balrogs can't fly, because another Balrog plunges to its death when it could have flown away if it
They're
could
useless.
fly. My wings are useless now. It's like... But yeah, like Glorfindel suffers this heroic death, which is why he's re-embodied quite, quickly. He doesn't spend much time in the halls of Mandos, and why later in the Third Age, he's sent with the Astari, with the wizards, to Middle-earth as one of the messengers of the Valar to fight against Sauron. So you have this sort of, because he makes this heroic sacrifice against the Balrog. So in the canon version of the story, you get two Balrogs killed in this battle. The head of them all, Gothmog, and then this other Balrog, which is unnamed. But I think in some of the earlier versions, Tolkien has it like where hundreds of Balrogs were there, and then later he walks that back, and it's like, maybe there was like a dozen there.
Well, are we forgetting the Balrog that I forget someone's fought in Rings of Power that turned the lightning into Mithril? Are we forgetting this?
We wanted to forget about it, Jeff, but now you've remembered.
Yes, we are. We are forgetting that.
I did not see that source material.
It was in another tale that hasn't been published yet. We'll find it eventually.
Well, Elrond says that the source of that information is dubious. He does say that. So he says it's apocryphal. So
he never would have told Bilbo.
Yeah.
Well, I think in the actual the Fall of Gondolin, in one of the many versions, they had the Balrogs and the Fire Drakes so like teaming together in a way, and there was one sentence that made it. I had to go back and re-listen to it because I was doing an audiobook, of course. But it was like I had to go back because the way that it sounded like was that the Balrogs did have wings, but it was the wings of the Fire Drakes.
Oh, interesting.
So I'm like, if you read that wrong, yes, they could definitely sound like they had wings, but
well, it's like Voltron, like the Balrogs can like connect to the dragon and become combined force.
No, there was no Red Bull back in this day.
Gives you wings. Yeah, so Gondolin destroyed. Turgon, you should have listened, but
and then you should have listened as the subtitle of pretty much every chapter.
Should have listened. Yeah, like
maybe think before you act. I don't know. I'm just throwing stuff out here. See what sticks.
Again, this is so much Old Testament. Like how many? This is like the Book of Judges. Like.
No,
over and over and over and over again.
Like I keep sending these heroes, and they do you some good, but then you don't take advantage of it. And then, like, yeah, the Book of Judges is just like metaphor for like human history because like that's all of human history. Yes.
You keep doing bad things. I keep trying to help you. You keep doing bad things.
You promise you'll stop, then you don't. All of human history and every human life.
Yeah, pretty much.
Thank God for the sacrament of reconciliation.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And most importantly, after that, the sacrament of last rites, or the sacrament of last rites.
Yeah.
Which Turgon didn't get. He went down with the tower. In the extended version of it, it's pretty awesome. He just basically tells Turgon, like, no, I'm not leaving. I'm going to stay here. You know, and even his guards don't leave. His personal guard stays with him.
Yep.
To the end. But Turgon leads everybody out into the land.
He wasn't banging on a drum as it went up and then came down.
No.
Got thrown off it at high speed.
Yeah. He'll leave that to the Dunlendings. Yeah. But yeah, they go to the Land of Willows, which is interesting because in some of the earlier versions of this story, it's the other way around. It's Tuor who goes to the Land of Willows first and then to Gondolin. But in this later version, he's reversed it. And that's when, his son, Earendil, first gets this sea longing that his father has. And Earendil, his name even means sea friend. And they make it to the mouths of Sirion, where they join with Elwing's people. So by this time, Doriath is also destroyed. So you have the exiles of Doriath and the exiles of Gondolin, like in this dual exodus. Like they basically form one people.
Yeah, this is kind of, and this would be kind of like the Havens of Sirion, where Yeah, they have, and that's, and even Gil-galad finally shows up, and
Arenion Gil-galad becomes High King because Turgon was the previous High King of the Noldor, which is interesting because in the lore he's kind of disputed parentage. There's several competing versions of who Gil-galad is actually the son of. Some sources say he's the son of Fingon. That's what the Silmarillion says. But then Christopher Tolkien says in other material that Gil-galad should have been the son of Orodreth, who was Finrod's brother, right? Yeah. So I've never really had a dog in this hunt as to who he should really be the son of, but
yeah. I mean, and ultimately, I think either line brings him into the kingship, if I remember correctly, because, well, everybody else is dead.
Well, everybody's dead.
And he's the last High King of the Noldor, right? Like, there's no one after him.
And I think he's the longest serving High King of the Noldor.
Because he makes it to the end of the Second Age.
Second Age.
Yep. Dies with
he even gets a Ring of Power.
Gets a Ring of Power, makes it to the end of the Second Age, and dies in combat with Sauron himself.
Yep.
Oh. Círdan's like youngin.
Círdan just wants to build his ships. He has in his garage, like, don't have
yeah. He's like, oh. Well, because this is when he shows up, right? He comes because he's down at the Bay of Balar because he's fled south a long time ago.
Yeah.
And they kind of set up there and they show up and they're like, oh, well, that's sad. Well,
let's join them.
Yeah, let's join the three peoples together and we'll make ships and see if we can convince the Valar to help us.
Hey, you want to build some boats?
Yeah.
Hey, but then Ulmo does try to do it. He does try.
Yeah.
And he gets laughed out.
That's right. At this point, they talk about something interesting, which is that they say that the Oath of Feanor has basically never harmed Morgoth, but has only been his mightiest aid. So even though, this oath is made against Morgoth, it's only done good for him. And they even says Morgoth regretted not the loss of one of the Silmarils, the one that Beren and Luthien took, because it has served his purposes. You know, it wreaked ruin on Nargothrond and Doriath. So he's like,
hey, it worked.
He's like Zod in Superman 2. I win. I always win. You know, like...
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the oath would harm him though, because well, I guess Arundel's not descended from Feanor, right? If I'm
not directly, yeah.
So I guess that didn't really harm. I was trying to think of if Arendel's like his what we'll see in the next chapter when he goes to the Valar, that harms Morgoth. But yeah, he's not really of the line of Feanor, really. So
yeah, because it's Fingolfin.
Yep.
On not Elwing, because Elwing's descended from
Thingol. Yep.
Yeah. And so yeah, it's Fingolfin, the more calm one.
Right. The second brother. Yeah.
The less Fey one.
We just need a whole like tree of write down everyone's names.
Well, we did an episode a few months ago where we kind of traced the line at least partway through the story. I think we stopped
the House of Finwë. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we stopped at near Nathan Ordiad, or we stopped at the at another battle. I can't remember which one.
Yeah, we just didn't describe what happened to them after. I think.
Yeah, well, I think we were only doing half of it because then it would have been a 3-hour podcast. And we hadn't gotten to this part of the story yet. So
yeah. To the conclusion of the three of threes of threes. Because you have the fall of the three kingdoms.
Yeah.
Or the three hidden kingdoms. And the closing of the three stories of men, right? You've got Beren and Turin and Tuor, and then the three loves, which or the combination of the three races and the three loves, which you've got the Maiar, the Eldar, and the humans. Finally coming to culmination in Elwing and I can't remember his name.
Arundel, yeah.
Arundel, yeah.
And the three Silmarils. So many threes.
Yeah.
So many threes. Almost like Tolkien planned it that way.
And 3 rings for the Elven King.
3 ages.
3 ages, yeah.
3 ages of the Elven kind.
It's funny because the 3 rings, in a way, do represent the 3 the fates of the 3 Silmarils. But I won't say too much more about that because that is in a future episode. But we get the fate of Tuor, which I always thought is fascinating. He's the only human to be counted an elf in the end. He's reverse Luthien.
Yeah, it's almost like Mandos when like Luthien's pleading. He's like, you know what? I think I got a trade coming.
Trade offer.
Yeah, I got a 1-for-1. Enter the trade portal.
But yeah, and he's sundered from the doom of men. He basically becomes an elf.
Yeah.
Well, or do we know that, or is it like what happens with like Frodo and Gimli and others, that like the few mortals that have gone to the West, like do they just die in the end?
It's said at the end of the Silmarillion chapter that at least it's believed among the Eldar that he became an elf. That he was numbered among the Eldar.
He was numbered among the Eldar race and was joined with the Noldor, whom he loved, and his fate is sundered from the fate of men.
Okay. Yeah, so that means, he's like the elves now, he's bound to the fate of Arda. He doesn't go beyond it like men do, to be with Eru Ilúvatar.
Now, does that mean that he can come back?
Right.
Somehow Tuor returns.
Well, in one of the
rise of Tuor,
one of the versions of the Fall of has a character named Legolas Greenleaf. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I wonder if that's not the same Legolas that comes back later in the Third Age.
Yeah, except like we know that Legolas is son of Thranduil. Like,
true.
Yeah, I think that was just because like Tolkien he really liked to reuse names sometimes. So it's like, especially with El, or like, have you ever looked at the lists of like the stewards of Gondor, like how many names they reuse? Like even Ecthelion.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Yeah, like.
No, true. I mean, just look at the dwarves.
The dwarves, so many Durins. Durin, son of Durin. Son of, and Durin the Fourth is like, hey, it's no shame for a dwarf to be named after his father or whatever. It's like, yeah. So, like I said, kind of a short chapter, but there is so much going on crammed into this.
And I really do think, this is sort of, I mean, it's filled with doom, obviously, with the Fall of Gondolin, but it really is there's hope. Like,
yes,
there's finally some human and elf that can get along and, will eventually make, for those that know about the whole Lord of the Rings saga, make it down that far.
What's the Lord of the Rings? I've never heard of it.
Well, it happens after the Rings of Power.
Yeah. And the only Tolkien thing I know is Rings of Power. So.
And there are probably people out there like
there have to be.
There have to be, absolutely.
Yeah. And if you're one of them, please let us know.
No, let us know. Yeah, we want to hear from you. We want to hear from you. Yes.
We don't want to give away too many spoilers. Let us know if we're giving away spoilers.
Yeah, so and any wrap-up thoughts on Tuor and the Fall of Gondolin?
No, nothing here. I'm excited to see the next kind of, because it's the final chapter of the Quinta. We've made it. So, or almost made it.
The final countdown. No.
You can't not. Anyways.
All right. But until that time, that's it for this episode of The Secrets of Middle-earth. But before we go, we would like to take a brief moment to thank all of our patrons who make this podcast possible, including Adam H., Philip M., Rebecca C., Tom E., and Kevin B. Their generous donations help us to continue to create The Secrets of Middle-earth and all of our shows at StarQuest. And you can join them at sqpn.com/give. Again, we would love to hear from you, our listeners. What did you think of The Fall of Gondolin? Was The Rings of Power your first Tolkien experience? Let us know. You can do so on our Facebook page, on Twitter. You can send us an email at middleearth@sqpn.com, or you can leave us a comment on YouTube or Spotify, or visit our channel on the StarQuest Discord community at sqpn.com/Discord. So join us next time for another adventure in Middle-earth. Until then, thank you, Rob Leonardi, for joining me and sharing the secrets of Middle-earth.
You're very welcome. And just after this podcast drops, I'm going to drop a new recipe for cookies, but it's going to be Tuor's cookies. So I want to know who's tried the Turin bar cookies recipe I put on the Discord server. But now we're gonna have a little bit of a. It's gonna be different. It's gonna be
Interesting.
Is it going to be like a big Tolkien bake-off and compare and contrast the two?
I would love somebody to try these cookies and let me know what you think.
I'll have to convince somehow, like strong-arm my brother who bakes into making these cookies. Anyway, Patrick Mason, thank you for joining us.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thanks for having me on.
And Jeff Haecker, thank you as well.
Thanks, Thomas.
And once again, I'm Thomas Salerno. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Middle-earth on StarQuest.
There's another show on the StarQuest network you're sure to enjoy, The Catholics of Oz. Find it wherever fine podcasts are found or at sqpn.com/Oz.